So, yeah, hi everyone. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, if you want to write down in the chat um, where you're connecting from, if you have any expectations, and if you do need interpretation in Spanish, please put in the chat in a capital letter EST. Si necesitáis traducción, interpretación al castellano, por favor poner en el chat ESP en mayúscula. Gracias. So, as you see, this session is being recorded. Okay, so if you do want to be part of the recording, you can disconnect your camera, but of course we recommend you to connect it so that we can see each other's face. Okay. This is a Zoom platform, so if you've never used it before, there is a chat at the bottom. Okay, if you got difficulty to find it, let us know, and we invite you to use it throughout the session. Okay, you can put reflections or ask questions. Okay, and during this session, at some point after we've listened to the speakers, there will be breakout rooms. Okay, so Amanda is going to set different rooms. And the only thing you will have to do is just click on the button appearing and you will be taken to a breakout room and then you will come back automatically. Before the end, you will receive a signal saying you've got 2 or 1 minute left, okay? Right, so it's 34 already, so we can get started with a brief introduction about the organizer of this session. And Juan, could you tell us a little bit about you, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Juan Mora, connecting from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I am the Executive Director of the Center for Artistry and Scholarship. Very happy to be here.
Amy.
And I'm Amy Halpern-Laff, zooming in from the Upper West Side of New York City. I'm the co-executive director of Ethics in Education Network.
Good morning. My name is Shirley Edwards, and I am connecting from New York City as the chairperson of Ethics in Education Network, Incorporated.
And I'm John Moscow. I'm in Teaneck, New Jersey. I'm also the co-executive director of Ethics in Education Network, and with Amy, the co-host of our podcast, Ethical Schools.
And I'm David Penberg. I'm coming to you from the land of Rip Van Winkle, the Hudson Valley, and I'm an academic advisor with the Augusta International Foundation.
Okay, thank you, David. And I'm Emmanuel, connecting from the north of Spain, and I work with an organization called Thinking With You, based in Spain. If you need any more information about any of us, just reach out, and we'll be glad to have a conversation with you. So it's already the third salon. So perhaps, John, what do you think? What about a little recap and to explain what happened in the previous episodes?
Okay. Amy, would you like to do this, or should I?
In this series, we've been looking at how we challenge the dominant narrative of human supremacy over nature and replace it with the idea that we are not separate from the earth, but an integral part of its ecosystems. In our first session, something became clear. Learning comes alive through relationship, with place, with nature, with one another. Through stories from Argentina and India, we saw what shifts when education grows from context, trust, and reciprocity instead of content delivery. Okay. Education stops being something we transmit, it becomes something we live.
Thank you, Amy. And in the second session, the second session dove deeper into that same river, but that time through story itself, from South Dakota, India, and Bali. Story were the way we thought together. We explore what happens when education is cut off from land, culture, and ethics, and what becomes possible when we weave them back in. We heard that place-based learning is not a trend, but a question of sovereignty. that nature is not a field trip, but the classroom we forgot. That ethical awareness grows quietly in small, slow encounters we usually rush past. So this is an invitation to slow down and notice. Working circles have emerged from these two salons. Small groups choosing to stay with the questions, to test ideas in real context, to shape action together. Actually, we'll get back to that part at the end of the salon.
Okay, well,
Amy?
yeah.
For our third and final session of this series on nature, place, and education, we bring together three figures, Kerry Kirk Pflugh, Tom Roderick, and Deb L. Morrison, who have worked in the arena of climate justice across overlapping domains, curriculum design, teacher education, and direct service. All three approach climate change from the lens of policy, curriculum, and program responses in K-12 education, and provide an important arrival and departure point into our shared exploration of nature, place, and the purpose of education. Let's dive in, not just into what we think about climate education, but into what we're willing to do about it.
Thank you,
Thank
Amy.
you, Amy. David.
Okay, so I'd like to read a short excerpt from a letter that Rachel Carson, the great environmentalist and writer, wrote actually in 1953. It's called On the Natural World. And it's a moment in time when Joe McCarthy and the Red Scare and the rule of law are all at risk. It's a letter that is, to say is prescient, is an understatement. We just need to think of Doge and think of what's going on under our own watch. So this is the letter. It goes as follows: 1953, April 22nd. The dismissal of Albert M. Day as director of the Fish and Wildlife Service is the most recent of a series of events that should be deeply disturbing to every thoughtful citizen. The ominous pattern that is clearly being revealed is the elimination from the government of career men and women of long experience and high professional competence, and the replacement by political appointees. The real wealth of this nation lies in the resources of the earth, soil, water, forests, minerals, and wildlife. To utilize them for present needs while ensuring their preservation for future generations requires a delicately balanced and continuing program based on the most extensive research. Their administration is not properly and cannot be a matter of politics. For many years, public-spirited citizens throughout the country have been working for the conservation of the natural resources, realizing their importance to the nation. Apparently, their hard-won progress is being wiped out as a politically minded administration returns to us to the dark ages of unrestrained exploitation and destruction. And finally, it's one of those ironies of our time that while concentrating on the defense of our country against enemies from without, that we should be so heedless of those who destroy it from within.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Yeah, you might want to take some time to let this passage sink in. Okay, so now let's have a little checking and not icebreaker, but more like bridge building. It's called From Weather to Will. So there are two steps. The first one is to answer this question. I'm going to put it now in the chat. Okay, it's when you hear the words climate justice in schools and youth programs, what feelings come first? So the question is in the chat, and we invite you to answer in the chat, or if you want to just tell us directly, that's perfectly fine. Squeezed out of by other demands, urgency. Inspiration, pride, civic pride.
Fun.
Sorry?
Fun. F-U-N.
Fun.
Fun.
F-U-N?
Yeah, thank you. Fun. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Purpose. Getting students involved in the planning. The critical need to be equitable in making such topics available to all students. Anything else? Yeah.
Well, starting where they are.
Starting where they are. Yes. Thank you, Debbie. Important. Yeah. From around. Yes. Thank you. All right. And the next step would be to continue this sentence. Same, I put it in the chat. In my context, one small but real climate action could be, and you complement.
Fun.
Fun, yes. Composting, I see here. Awareness. Thank you. Participating in local government directly or by engaging in local meetings. Yes. Thank you, Jens. Being outside with children more. Absolutely, yeah. Yes. Continuing to integrate it into our podcast, plus composting. Building up. Organizing a summer institute day for planning. Learning about impact of AI energy use and talking more about it. Bring the awareness and the responsibility within that their actions have consequences to them and the ones around them. Planting. Yeah, beautiful. I invite you to continue, okay, sharing in the chat. But we see that today, it isn't about agreeing on the problem. It's about clarifying what schools and youth program can actually do, oriented towards actions. And I'm going to read one more that says, engaging with an existing group, doing things you care about to learn intergenerationally and locally. Thank you very much. David.
Okay. Thank you, Emmanuel. So this is a very special morning. I think we have three very unique guests that span a cross-section of the K-16 world. Kerry Kirk Pflugh is the executive director of the New Jersey School of Conservation, which is an environmental learning center. She also comes with an extensive background at the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Tom Roderick is the author most recently of Teach for Climate Change, a vision for transforming education. And he's the developer of the Teach for Climate Justice project. He was also the founding executive director of the Morningside Center for Teaching Social Responsibility. And finally, Deb L. Morrison is a learning designer and advisor at the University of Washington and a lead author on the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Assessment, Report number 7. So in speaking with our guests, there were 3 words that seemed to constantly circulate and rise to the surface: caretaking, stewardship, and community engagement. So we've asked our guests to reflect on 3 guiding questions through the lens of climate change, not apocalyptically, but practically and pedagogically, in the form of actionable work that's taking place in K-12 education. Those 3 questions, by the way, which are in the chat, were as follows. What does an education grounded in environmental justice, youth agency, stewardship, and care mean to you? Second, beyond fostering environmental and scientific literacy, how can we help children and youth experience a deep sense of interconnectedness and relationship with the living world? And finally, How do you nurture practices of care and stewardship in the lives of young people so that these become integral to their educational experience? So just one bit of housekeeping, take notes, either in a notebook or in the chat, because I think these will all come in useful during the breakout session. So with great pleasure, I turn the virtual floor over to Kerry Kirk Pflugh. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
You're good.
Yes.
Great. So I work in an upland temperate forest on 240 acres on a historic Civilian Conservation Corps campus, where once the Ramapo Lenape people lived and traversed, and where in the 1600s it was settled by the Dutch to farm and mine. Here on our campus, you might see a black bear wander through from time to time, or find a bobcat sunning itself on Rainbow Bridge, or you may even see a beaver dragging a small aspen or pine branch into the water to its hidden den. On any given day, you'll also see a group of students wearing waders in Flatbrook turning over rocks looking for macroinvertebrates or taking heat measurements on various surfaces like a tree, the side of a building, or a boulder. You might even see them gathered in a group around an obstacle on our ASC courses, working as a team to solve a problem or a challenge. This is the space where we've been delivering environmental education programming for 77 years. All right, we're not advancing. I'm not quite sure why. And we're the oldest year-round residential environmental education center in the country. Try again. I'm not sure why it's not advancing. I apologize.
That's okay.
We have served roughly 500,000 students and educators and researchers throughout our history. And we were established in 1949 as the state's outdoor education center in response to advocacy by a group of educators that have provided education programming to teachers and students ever since. I'm really frustrated. I can't advance it. Anyway, our goal is to
Kerry,
empower
do you
students.
want to try to stop sharing the screen and put it up again? Maybe that will work.
All right.
Let's see.
Sure.
Good suggestion.
All right. Let me try this way. Maybe this is better to try this way.
Oh, yeah. You're good.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. All right. So our goal is to empower students to realize that they can make a difference in their world by helping them believe that they can tackle environmental problems they're facing, especially as it relates to climate change. We have 5 program areas at the School of Conservation, including school programming, teacher professional development, research, community organization programming, and public programming. Our school programs are primarily focused on elementary schools, usually the 6th grade, but we also serve younger students and high school students. Prior to a school visit, we conduct community assessments so we know where the students are coming from and we can make the connection between the natural world that they're going to be experiencing and where they live. Environmental concepts are integrated into the 4 curriculum areas of science, humanities, social studies, and recreation. In 2023, we launched new innovative classes that align with the new climate change standards championed by former First Lady Tammy Murphy. When students arrive on our campus, we bring them to our gathering place for orientation. This is where we welcome them, let them know a little bit about ourselves, about the school, and what to expect while they're there. We talk about the classes they're going to take, and then my education director tells them that there's magic on the campus. And she says that the magic is different for everyone who comes and that they have to open themselves to find it. So they go off to their classes of water ecology, climate change, or discovery hikes. And at the end of the program, whether it's a day trip or a multi-day program, they come back to share their experiences. One example I wanted to share with you is from a student who took a conservation photography class. She took a picture of Rainbow Bridge, and when she took the picture, there was a drop of water on her lens. When she developed the picture, it revealed that there was a rainbow on Rainbow Bridge, and she was so excited that she said that that's my magic. I found my magic.
Mm-hmm.
The second area is teacher professional development. We offer roughly between 8 and 10 programs annually, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. Our third area is research. We've established what we call a research consortium. We have 7 colleges and universities who have signed on as members, and we're always taking more universities and colleges. This has opened up opportunities for field research by professors and internship possibilities for their students. With a signed agreement with Rutgers University that facilitates the consortium, we've been recognized by the college as their northern field station for research. We're also part of the climate change network that Rutgers manages by having a weather station on our campus. The fourth area is community-based partnerships. Since 2023, we've invited mission-aligned organizations to use our campus for their workshops and trainings as well as programming. And this has helped us to develop relationships beyond school programs and has allowed us to expand our programming reach. The fifth area we focus on is public programming. And through public programming, we extend our reach beyond schools to families in the area and around the state who want to engage in meaningful outdoor experiences. Our programs kind of run the gamut from science-based programming to recreation, and we operate these mostly on the weekends. So I want to take a little more time and talk about professional development program that we offer. Although the School of Conservation has provided pre-service training going back as far as 1949 for teachers and experiential learning for elementary school students since the 1960s, it wasn't until 1989 when the state established a Commission on Environmental Education by executive order. This commission was charged with creating a plan of action, and that plan was launched in 1993. It established a formal structure to integrate environmental ed into the state's K-12 curriculum. It created standards, and it also advocated for teacher professional development. As a result of that, there was an expansion of schools participating in environmental education programming and curriculum, as well as increased professional development for training teachers. However, it wasn't until 2020 when climate change education became mandated that all educators were required to teach climate change in all subject matter areas between K to 12. And that's when the need for training became urgent. Fortunately, a grant that's referred to as the Climate Change Learning Collaborative was issued by the Department of Education. And in partnership with Ramapo State College, the School of Conservation is part of this network. We've trained roughly 400 educators over the last 2 years. There are also 14 community-based organizations like the schools offering such training. And in our first year, collectively, we've offered 160 events around the state. 400 public schools were represented. There are 2,400 participants and 740 unique educators participating. Now, this is just for the first year. We haven't crunched the numbers for year 2. I expect them to be similar. And fortunately, the grant has been renewed for a third year, so hundreds more educators will be trained and given tools and resources to bring to their students. Additionally, the grant has provided for school trips and opportunities for students to experience nature firsthand while learning about how the climate is changing and what actions they can take to address it. With evaluations taken at the end of these sessions, we're learning that the impact of this grant is far-reaching. One participant told us that she has used multiple lessons from the School of Conservation in her classroom this year, and it plans to continue to do so. And she said, because of my involvement, I'm more mindful of the complex connections to nature that translate to home and school. So we know anecdotally and empirically that time in nature through environmental education programs has led to improving academic performance, personal growth, including confidence and problem-solving skills. So from my perspective, the direction we as educators need to take is continued advocacy to our government leaders and decision makers for a sustainable support for pre-service training, teacher professional development, and student environmental education field trips. Additionally, I believe we need to find new channels and new audiences beyond the education community to share the results of our research, show the benefits of environmental education to society. This will help us nurture a wider constituency of supporters that will advocate with us for investment in environmental education. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kerry. And now I, with great pleasure, turn the virtual floor over to Tom.
I just unmuted.
You're good.
So, welcome everybody. It's an honor to be here with you this morning. And I'm going to start with just a very short background about me. I have a long career in education. I got involved in education through the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s and taught in Harlem and East Harlem for 10 years after getting my master's from Bank Street College of Education. And in the early 80s, I got involved with an organization called Educators for Social Responsibility Metropolitan Area, which was formed by educators concerned about the danger of nuclear war. At that time, the United States and the Soviet Union were escalating the nuclear arms race. And so for the next 36 years, I was the founding executive director of ESR Metro, which we changed our name to Morningside Center for Teaching Social Responsibility in 2006. And so after 36 years with Morningside Center, I retired in 2019 and set to work on my book, which is called Teach for Climate Justice, A Vision for Transforming Education. The book is not a curriculum, it's a vision of what education needs to be in this time of three interwoven crises: global warming, environmental degradation, and inequality. And the book has, the vision has 8 components. And today I'm going to address the first 2. The first component of the vision is build the beloved community in our classrooms and schools. The second vision, part of the vision, is cultivating love and understanding of nature. And I'm going to introduce you to that part of the vision, love and cultivating love and understanding of nature, with 2 stories. You're going to meet 2 teachers and hear, learn of their approaches to cultivating love and understanding of nature. The first is Megan Welford. And Megan teaches at a small school called Keene Central School in the Adirondacks of New York State, Adirondack Mountains of New York State. And and her school is a small K-12 school, about 170 students, 40% of whom qualify for free lunch. I'm just going to read you in Megan's own words how she thinks about her teaching. I love exposing children to real-world issues and then coaching them toward action to solve them. My students and their aha moments sustain me in this work. Whether the issues are local or global, it's vital to foster this sense of agency in young people. That process and the ever-increasing urgency of the climate crisis are what keep me going. So Megan teaches 5th and 6th graders at Keene Central School, and she joined with a 3rd grade teacher a couple years ago to do a year-long study of the Lake Champlain watershed, in which the town of Keene and the school are located. And so it started with students, and she, by the way, she paired with a 3rd grade teacher. So it was a 3rd grade and 6th grade teacher and students sort of joining together for this year-long study of the Lake Champlain watershed. And started with the students just sharing in multi-age groups, sharing how their family has been connected to the watershed, swimming, boating, fishing, and visiting the various museums and so on around the watershed. And next step was field trips to, there's a beaver pond, there's a fast-moving stream, there's a river, the Ausabel River, and the students would go and keep event maps, just noting down the plants, the animals, the things they saw and experienced, and their thoughts, their feelings, right? Then they hiked in Rattlesnake Mountain, which is a popular tourist district in the area. They visited Essex Farm nearby to learn about sustainable agriculture. And they visited the Ego Lake Center, ECO standing for Environmental Culture, History, and Opportunity. It describes itself as a seriously fun science center. And they learned there, they took a course called Rock and Roll Geology to learn about the geological history of the area. And they took a trip to a historical site where they learned about the 9,000 years of indigenous they learned about the indigenous people who lived in the area there for 9,000 years before Europeans arrived in the 1600s. They learned about pollution from some of the local industries around around Lake Champlain, and about steps being taken to address that. And they heard from guest speakers. They organized a science slam that they invited the community to come. They learned and learned and learned, and motto of the school is know, understand, and do. The do part had to do with dog poop. The students acknowledge that dogs are our best friends, right? But their poop is not great for the ecosystem, for the watershed. And so they organized to set up dog poop mess stations at 4 places in the community. They researched it. They researched the effects of dog poop on the lake. They researched the most effective mess stations. They researched how much they cost. They approached the city council. They got people from the town involved. And together, they achieved their goal. In addition, they observed World Water Day. Water availability is not an issue in the Lake Champlain area, but 2.2 billion people around the world, it is an issue. And so they took part in World Water Day. And they read the book, a great young adult book called Long Walk to Water, that tells the story of a girl in South Sudan who spends her whole day trekking to a place to get water, fill up her bucket, and return to her home so that her family can have water. Not able to go to school, spends her whole day trekking there. And they met with people who they learned about an organization that digs wells for families in South Sudan and raise money to contribute to that.
Tom, sorry, I'm going to put my hat of the timekeeper.
Yes.
One extra minute, please. Thank you.
1 more minute.
1 more minute, please.
Yeah, the story of Megan and her year-long study illustrates the framework for our chapter, which is to cultivate love and understanding of nature. You need to make it personal. You need to make it local. You need to be stewards for the environment, and you need to address climate justice. And her story illustrates exactly how to do that. If I had more time, and maybe we'll have time later, I'll tell another story. Takes place in New York City. Liat Olenek, who's a science teacher for grades K to 4, and how she is in a very different environment, bringing magic and environmental learning to her students. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. Deb, do you want to take us home?
All right. Just reorganize myself slightly. Okay, so I'm Deb Morrison. The L is actually important because there is more than one Deb Morrison on the west coast of North America working in climate justice. So this is me. Really grateful to be living and working here on Salish territory, including Cowichan, Penelkut, Pakuchin, Sayo, Malahat, Sartlip, and Sycam nations. So really very grateful for that. These homeland spaces. I work with the University of Washington, and I have been honored to collaborate with so many folks across North America and across the world. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm currently a lead author on the IPCC on knowledge mobilization and climate literacy. So lots of responsibility there. So I live in the Salish region, which is a bioregion that crosses Canada and the US. Nature doesn't really care about political borders as much. And so this is the place that is near and dear to me. Oops. What happened here? Oh, I think I just clicked on a... Sorry.
Mm.
You love the freaky things that happen with... Okay. So as we are thinking about, this idea of caring, stewardship, and community engagement, I wanted to share with you a recent article. It's open access. We're trying really hard to make sure resources are widely available in community. And so this this article really kind of lays out some of the key sort of aspects of care. Like when we talk about care, what do we really mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we think about lots of the things that have already been said. We think about attention to emotions, inviting curiosity about the world, right? That's actually part of how we care about the other than human components of our space. Hope, like always trying to focus on hope. Thinking about adaptive capacities. We actually don't want a false hope. We want like a pragmatic type of hope of how to like move through the world. Relationality and how power and positionality also, like we have to own what power we have and leverage it for the commons. And then this idea of transdisciplinary and justice-oriented learning. And some of the resources that have been talked about here today are really, really helpful in thinking about that. But as we think about sort of climate learning, we have to also think about like what are the systems moves, right? Like not only what are the individual moves that we make with students, but how do we build educators' capacity, administrators' capacity, communities' capacity to envision a different educational system? And so, and also I want to think about like when we're thinking about climate justice literacy, like if we name it that way, there are lots of different ways to understand it, to see how it's, bright spotted in the world, like the example that Tom just gave. But one of the things we want to think about is like, how can we really create a transformative definition? And so, we've been toying with this idea. We have some resources that are all linked to these slides, and the slide link is in the chat already. Please feel free to just dive into these and look at them. We want to meet people where they're at, right? Like to really affect change, you have to engage agency that already exists in the world. So we have to meet people with what they care about and the locations and places and contexts they are, and help them build and co-design learning from those spaces. So this wheel of climate justice education, we think of it as the sun diagram, and we think about the different ways that we can kind of start with one tangent and pull people into climate justice in different ways. And that might be a language learning focus. It could be a racial-based justice focus. It could be frontline community, or even like a science, like really hardcore science focus, right? But there are ways in and through to think about diverse science knowledges, to like understand and expand our world. Ideally, we want to start touching on all of these rays at some level. So there's lots of different ways to define climate literacy, and I'm actually working on some writing to like kind of hold all of these different versions of climate literacy together. One thing is very clear, that climate literacy in the modern world does not only include science literacy. It includes literacy around emotions and emotional management and resilience. It includes understanding social movements, action, government policies, social sciences. It involves many different things. And I also would like to challenge our idea that all that knowledge has to reside in a single individual. As we've heard today, like really it's about collective agency, collective action and effort. And so we can hold those knowledges together in many different people, and it's the relationships among us and with other than human organisms in our own context. And so it's those relationships among these different components that are critical for everyone to learn. I would argue that many of us my age didn't have this learning in school. So we need to also learn it as we build capacity for others. So as we're thinking about this, there's 3 examples that I brought here. Oh, one other thing that I just wanted to share is I do have an article that talks about these ideas conceptually. Hopefully it's easy to read. It's meant to be for like an every person article. And these ideas are called not working and infrastructuring. So not working is the idea that we just build tighter relationships in all different directions and ways. And infrastructuring is the idea that we resource people to do the next thing or the new thing in ways that actually really facilitate that thing getting done. And that can be through book studies. It can be through, co-design of curriculum in a local place. It can be just going outside and knowing your place, right? Like going for connected space learning efforts together. Slow down, like everybody said, slow down and like learn your place. So there are 3 different examples that I've provided here that have resources. The Accelerating That across Canada is amazing. Dr. Ellen Field and Hilary Ingwood, sorry. Really amazing effort to coordinate structural support for educators across Canada. And Climb Time is a Washington state effort. It actually got defunded this year for the first time in 8 years. But like the New Jersey effort that Kerry talked about, it was a legislatively state-funded effort, and the resources are all here. So all these are hyperlinked in the slide deck, so please feel free to dive in. And then the Office for Climate Education is actually the arm of the IPCC, educational partner, tightly with the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and they're producing science rigorous resources that can be contextualized in different locations, and I've been partnering with them for some time. So maybe just a couple last things. I feel like I can't go anywhere without talking about the STEM teaching tools. They're an infrastructuring resource. I have been working at the University of Washington for 10 years now, and I've contributed to what's called the climate learning sort of space. We are actually going to eventually launch something called the climate teacher ed tools.
You're probably muted.
I'm muted?
Oh,
You're
no,
good.
I'm sorry. I assumed we were muted on this.
And so these resources here are some of the ones that are on the slide that I threw in the chat. They're really like 1-page double-sided briefs that are meant as like an object to learn around. So they can be used by families, by administrators, by educators. You can use them with students. Like there are all sorts of ways to use them. And they're co-designed with collaborators across different contexts. So please dive in and feel free to explore those. I really, really do agree with many of the things that have said. Really, to grow this type of systems work, we need to slow down. We need to get outside every day, every one of us. And we need to do that in collective ways as well. So we got to fight this individualistic narrative that goes on. Learning is a collective activity, and we learn in and with each other, in and with the land and the waters of our regions. And so I really encourage folks to just make it a daily practice to like get out with others in space, learn those connections of history to place. I'll pause there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deb and Kerry, for sharing. We'd like to say that we'll share all the links mentioned during the talks in our webpage, in case you want to get more information. And before David invited you to take some notes, because so many things have been shared, so perhaps you can go back to them before we move on to the breakout room. So Amanda is going to prepare a few of them. And the idea is to have conversation based on what you've listened to. And when we come back, we need a spokesperson for each breakout room. So at the beginning, when you get together, decide who is going to be the spokesperson for when we come back in the plenary. So we're going to share to start the conversation, and it's only to get started. Then whatever emerge would be good. In the chat, I'm sharing the questions. The question, just one. So if you had to make one concrete shift in your school or context in the next 30 days to move from climate awareness to climate action, what would it be? And here again, it's just a prompt. You can share something you've already started. It's really up to you, just to get the conversation started. So this is the starting point. It's in the chat. And remember, when you get into the breakout room, decide who is going to be the spokesperson, because after the conversation will continue in the plenary. Okay, so welcome everybody back from the breakout room here again, the land of unfinished conversation. And so before we continue, let's take advantage here. I see most of the faces. I'm going to take a snapshot, okay? The idea is to put it on LinkedIn, okay? So if you don't want to be there, just can turn your camera on, but I see beautiful faces here. So if you're okay, right? So just give me 3 seconds. There we are, beautiful smiles. Come on, David. There we go. Thank you very much, beautiful. So now it's time to share. So I guess we've got in each breakout room, there was a spokesperson. So the idea is to share the insight, no more than 2 minutes, please. And then so that the conversation can continue. And we've got also only 17 minutes left. So which room would like to start?
I'll get right into it to save us time. So we were group one. We had a really rich conversations. It was difficult to focus on the question. There's some concrete things that came out, but I want to start with the themes and then talk about the concrete. So the themes were connection with groups, taking advantage of the resources, the experiences, the people we already have contact with to push their interests, their ideas further into environmental conservation as educators. Intergenerational was also something that came up multiple times. Some practical things were, a lot of it is listening to me. So Kerry gave an example of a school that she worked with, and she heard about what they were doing and turned it into this incredible, I think, participatory design, place-based experience that made their building environmentally friendly, or their landscape environment, and they learned in the process as well. And in my work as a coach, listening to teachers and students, giving the teachers permission to bring these concepts into the curriculum, even if it isn't officially there, where it belongs, and listening to students. And when I hear of the spark of interest or concern or hope, to connect them to other resources I have access to.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you. Who's next?
Shall I go next?
Okay, Davey.
I didn't realize how hard it would be to summarize a conversation, but we talked in some partly, and I would say became a kind of thread through the discussion about the political issues that environment is in our culture, and the importance of, you don't want the kids to go home and tell their parents they were talking about in the environment and have their parents get frightened that you are now becoming some kind of socialist. And so I think we need to be, teachers need to be able to talk about that concern. And first of all, and second of all, be aware of the different attitudes in their community, that even if there's one culture in the community, that there are different positions and different views, but that we all do live in nature, and we have to first, I think the point was discussed that we have to first get kids to notice their environment and realize and watch it and be part of it. And then we have to know who else in the community is doing what they're doing. So I don't know, it's hard to summarize. It was a very nice discussion.
Yeah. Thank you, Deb. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess there are two other rooms, right? Who else would like to share?
I'll share from our group. First, people mentioned just the wonderful impact of the speakers in terms of just mentioning all the things that are out there that people are already doing that can be connected to. And this conversation, a lot of it focused around grants and how to bring the resources in, and also things that can be done even without additional resources. For example, Jane mentioned the idea of just having students bring something in from the outside that you don't normally think about a lot. And I actually gave the example from Pat's having been in a class at Lehman, where an English class where they had them do an in detail description of a potato, which one might not automatically pay a lot of attention to. But in terms of grants, the idea of connecting with connecting with other things that foundations, for example, or schools might be interested in, such as literacy, for example. And Sam mentioned the idea of, environmental and climate projects as being motivating to students, which could also be a factor in increasing attendance, so that might be another kind of a hook. And certainly one can design literacy programs around the environment. And Carolyn mentioned, thinking about, letting go of feeling that you have to be in control and really encouraging the students to be in control, and having the students be responsible for designing it. And we also talked about some specific examples of groups. For example, New York City, the Brotherhood Sister Soul, that does a lot of community work and a lot of stuff around the environment. And also, Jane mentioned programs in Santa Cruz. I think it was Life Lab, Jane. And also in Albuquerque, where they had a program where all the high school students were required to do work on the river. So it was a really, fun discussion.
Great. Thank you, John. I guess, is there another group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, I do what I can in English to summarize this, but in our group, our discussions were mostly about, I think, how to get entry points to, the youth in the urban context. For example, Juan talked to us about his experience to how to open a reserve next to a school that is locked most of the time, and they don't spend much time in the year, and mostly fight against the rules. No. Another example was students going to film. I think it was an example from Tom next to New Orleans, film something about water, but to get engaged, to get to do something and share on the networks, on the web. For my part, I share my frustration to being in a big city in Buenos Aires right now, how to, well, these themes, we talked much about slow down, go outside, and get immersed, but how to do that in the city. So, well, then we talked about the law, and I can't say, yeah. And we concluded with this input to show a stronger appetite for education to the politics, something like this. Yeah. Hope it helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, Emmanuel, I'll just say,
David, you're on mute, so I don't know. You can hear your voice. It's strange because we hear your voice and you're on mute. It's magic.
Here I am. So
Yes.
I just wanted to say that what I'm taking from the comments and the feedback is that there is a tremendous amount of collective wisdom and insight and devotedness when thoughtful people like those that are here assembled come together. And it actually moves us towards what Tom was talking about, the creating of this beloved community, that we can never, ever lose sight of what that actually means. And that this then becomes a way to actually cultivate love and an understanding of nature. It doesn't need to be apocalyptic. It doesn't need to be abstract. There are very, very practical, real, life-giving ideas that we all have. And for me, it's a privilege to be listening and to be part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Okay, we've got only 8 minutes left, and we'd like to share with you something that has been happening since the first salon, is that actions is gradually taking place. And to share with you, I'm going to, just a moment, show here. Okay, this infographic, tell me, no, this is not the one I wanted to, just a moment. Bear with me. And there we go. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, what we're trying to do since the first salon is to move from inspiring conversation like today to actually doing something together between salons. For example, when a strong question lingers, for example, how do we bring nature-based practices into classroom where nature feels absent? Or how do we work with standards instead of always pushing against them? Basically, we form a small working circle of, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 people, okay? They meet once or twice in between the salon, focus on that one powerful question and create something practical, like could be a classroom practice or a simple playbook. And at the same time, everyone tries one small shared experiment in their own context. And as you can see in the visual, in the infographic here, it's not a random activity. It's like a cycle. And the circles, which come from powerful questions, are like roots doing focused work underground. The mid-cycle can allow idea to cross-pollinate. Here's the encounter, the co-creation. And the next salon become the harvest. So when we'll share what happened, where lived experiment and real stories are shared. What we are building is not just a series of events, but a living ecosystem, a community that grows, slowly feeds itself, and stays alive through the practice. So here we've got an example. 2 circles have emerged from the first 2 salons. The first one is a funding circle comprised of 4 or 5 people who have expressed an interest in pursuing grants for potential nature informed or driven project. That's the first one. And the other one, and here we've got Ransom, is he still here? Yeah, it's at Agastya Circle, coming from India, examining ways to strengthen and sustain a continuous and meaningful culture of learning for all Agastya's educators. And here again, our intention is to connect this initiative with other people from different contexts and different places. For you to know, so if you're interested in participating in any way, we invite you to write to us, okay? Could be an individual participation, or if you want to be part of one of the circle or create one, please let us know. I'll ask somebody, I don't know if Amanda, to share in the, yeah, perfect. Our our email. Do not hesitate, reach out to us and we can have a conversation. Okay? So before we I give the baton to you, John, we'd like to, as a takeaway here, after this session, we'd like for you to share in the chat or here directly to answer this question. What seed from this session do you take with you? That's the first one. I put it in the chat. Oh, sorry, I forgot the wrong chat. This one, there. And the next one would be, what will you water in the next 30 days? So first question, what seed do you take with you from this salon? And the second question, what will you water in the next 30 days? And you can answer now in the chat or later on to our email. And John, over to you.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just still absorbing everything from this session and also from the other two sessions. So this has been a pilot. This has been something that we've been working on for a while, and it's been new to all of us. And it's really been part of a larger project that we're trying to do. And what we want to do now is to build on what we've done in the last 3 sessions and some of the other strands that we've been thinking about as a group include student leadership and agency, building democratic schools and democratic communities and schools and community settings, and scalability. How can democratic and ethical learning communities grow beyond small standalone models? And can they interact with governmental institutions? And if so, how? And so what we're going to be thinking about is how do we build on what we've been talking about with nature and especially place and education and integrate all of these things as we move along and as we build a community. And we really want to invite everybody who's been part of this. And it's been interesting. And I know many of us have been on 1 or 2 or 3 of the sessions. And it's been different people who've been able to make it for people on the East Coast, 8:30 on a Saturday morning, for people like Deb on the West Coast at 5:30 in the morning, for people in India at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So it hasn't all been the same people at each session, but we've also been getting feedback and people joining the working groups. And so it's really an ongoing project that we're really hoping will continue to build a community. I know for me, Amy and I, have our podcast where, we reach out, and it's exciting because we get to talk to a lot of really interesting people. On the other hand, it's basically one-way communication. And one of the things that's been really fun in the last 3 salons has been the conversation. And from an ethical point of view, just thinking of changing how we think about our relationship to a more ethical relationship to nature has just been really intense and very beautiful. So we have right now another pilot, which is using Mentimeter as a way of getting feedback from people. And I think that Emmanuel is going to put that in the chat, or I hope, where people can give us some immediate feedback. And also on a larger scale, people can also just keep sending messages to, info@globalconversations.net. And if you want to respond with the QR code, or if you want to go to menti.com and you can use the code that's on the screen 69664112, or you can just send an email to info@globalconversations.net. But most importantly, we really are hoping that this will be a growing, multinational, global, multi-party conversation that everybody can join in. And we're hoping that the salons will lead to a convening at some point, a global convening, where people who are interested in all the various strands that we'll be talking about can come together and share. And meanwhile, we just really want to thank everybody who's participated and is participating.
Yeah, John. So here I see that 6 people connected to the Mentimeter. Okay, and just because of time, I'm going to move to the next slide. Here, that's an open-ended question. In our upcoming education salons, what topics or questions would you like us to explore more deeply? There are only 2 questions left, so that would be the first one. So you can write down your answer. If you've got any questions, technical problem, let us know. And if you cannot access, there's always the chat or the email.
Now is the time. Now is the time for all good men to get together with one another. Iron out their problems and iron out their quarrels and try to live as brothers. And try to find peace within without stepping on another. And do respect of the women of the world.
Your answer is how we use art in this work, forest schools, democratic education, the relationship between our bottom-up efforts in our local roles and relationship, and top-down advocacy for resources and policy changes. I think both are needed, but we can be intentional. Okay? Strategies to fund and sustain critical e-programming. And I'm going to move to the last question, the very last questions. What would you change about the salon so far, and how could we make the next ones more meaningful or impactful for you?
Strongest hope of the little boys and girls, and make a better life and the world in which we live, and help each man be a better man with the kindness that you give. And I know we can make it. I know done well we can work it out. I know we can make it work. I know we can make it if we try.
Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Anything else? Yes. Yes. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. If speakers could have 10 minutes and maybe a little longer in the breakouts. Okay. Can't think of anything. Love it. Thank you very much. And the other one, I'm going to read it if you cannot see it. All the info was great, but there was too much for the time frame. Even with very good facilitation and time management, tighten and focus even more. Thank you very much for the feedback. Okay. I'll stop sharing. You can still answer. We'll get the here. And it's 5 past already. So personally, I'd like to express lots of gratitude towards everyone. Very thankful. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And remember, it's an ongoing process. It doesn't finish here. We continue the conversation and the work. Any doubt you've got, reach out to us through the email.